There are days like today when I wish I had a longer show. There is just so much of the that we need to talk about that you get one massive event that happens and that dominates such of the cycle, so much of the cycle that you really have to put a lot of things up on the shelf that really should be addressed as well. But we'll do our best today with the 2 hours minus commercials and the like that we have. I'm very glad that those commercials are here. I should point out too as well because that keeps me working. So thank you to our fine sponsors this morning. One of those sponsors is going to be doing very well in the next few weeks, and probably already is. You've heard there are record firearm sales going on across the country because there are so many people out there who are concerned that Lefty is going to try to stop the whole production of firearms. And Lefty would if Lefty could. We understand that. 52 right now. Bill Colley with you, 8 minutes after 8 o'clock. I was talking to a couple of my coworkers yesterday. These are people I would not think would be people who would be looking for firearms. But events in this country have changed so dramatically since San Bernardino and now Orlando that they realize that these attacks could happen anywhere. It's not, and I was just doing my pregame warm up. I do a little video every day, if I can, on Facebook where I talk about some of the things that we have coming up on the program. And I spend about 10 minutes just sort of rummaging around my own mind and explaining some things that are going on. And we don't, if you went to someone who was in the ISIS command right now over in the Middle East and said Twin Falls, Idaho, they'd look at you and go, huh? That's not relevant. Because what is relevant is all across America, you have people, usually young men, who are frustrated with the way their lives are turning out. And this happens not just among Muslim men. Let's be honest. You've got a lot of young white men out there, white Christian men. They are frustrated with the way their lives are turning out. Their opportunities aren't there any longer because the U.S. economy is nowhere near what it used to be. You've got young Latino men who are frustrated for that reason as well. You've got young black men who are frustrated for that reason as well. Young Asian men who've come to America, and some of them, of course, have been here several generations, and they are frustrated for all of the very same reasons. And they realize that the promise of America isn't quite what it used to be. And that may well be because we have people in government who just are completely incompetent, or this is the path they want for us. But this is the case. The thing is that most of those men of Asian ancestry, Latino ancestry, and Caucasian ancestry, they aren't a whole heck of a lot of trouble generally. But it's these young Islamic men who end up going on these websites and then they see the recruiting posters saying, well, you know, if we only had a caliphate, life would be so much better for you. And why don't you go out and try and start it in your own neighborhood? And, if you end up getting killed, don't worry. There'll be 72 virgins immediately waiting for you on the other side. That's the encouragement, the only encouragement some of these young people need. So some of my coworkers were telling me yesterday that they are looking to purchase firearms. These are people who have never owned firearms before. These are people I would not have thought would ever have an interest in owning firearms. And a couple of them showed up at my desk yesterday and they said, look, you've been over to Canyon Pond. What do they have available? And I said, what do you want? You go in there, you give him some specifications, and he's going to come back and give you something that you can use. I'll put it that way. And this is going on around the country, and the interest is heightened because there are efforts. And the leftists, my friends, they are bearing down hard, trying to impose, if you will. I made a slight analogy this morning. The newspaper out of Nampa, the Press-Tribune, I believe it's called, has a story today written by a fellow whose name sounds like his parents came here or grandparents from India. And he's interviewed some people who are angry and whining that 96% of the state legislators in Idaho are white people. But only 83% of the population of Idaho would be considered Caucasian. So therefore, we have to limit the number of legislators in Idaho to just 83% who are white people so that we can have a more representative look. Now, this is affirmative action for government. It's got nothing to do with what voters decide, because right now, if the voters wanted somebody who had, 4 legs and was green and a couple of horns coming out of their forehead, if the person came along and said, I have a plan to save the state money and you as taxpayers money, here it is, and it looked to be a good plan, we'd elect them. So, you don't have to go out and say, well, we need 4-legged green people with horns, because I'm telling you right now, their view is, since it does not look like the population, and what's 83% to 96%, who cares? We probably don't have enough left-handed representation in Boise as well. So now we've got to go out and say, well, so-and-so over here is right-handed. You five have to go. We're going to bring in five new left-handed people. Therefore, left-handed folks will have better representation. If you want people that look like you in government, then find someone who's electable. That's all. Simple as that. But they'd like to destroy democracy as we know it. That is, the direct election of people to represent us. They really would like to destroy the republic, which they feel is just an oligarchy. It always has been, according to their narration. And what they'd like to do is institute some sort of, and somehow they believe if we have a dictatorship, it will always be a left-wing dictatorship, and somehow will follow what they want it to do. Good luck on that. See, that's the type of narrow-minded thinking that the American left engages in any longer, and I'm telling you, it is a very dangerous mindset. In other words, this doesn't look like I want it to look. It needs to look like I want it to look, and therefore we are going to force it to look like what I want. This is from Mediaite, which is a publication that Mediaite tracks not only what happens in newspapers and websites across the country, but in television news as well. I saw this last night before going to bed. There's a left-wing publication called Vox. It is very left-wing. The writer says, Vox writer Dylan Matthews said on Twitter Thursday that he believed the president should be able to unilaterally ban all Americans from purchasing guns. And then there's a photograph of the guy. I mean, he looks like someone you wouldn't want your children near. He looks like the guy who would claim to be a woman and come in at Target and prowl on your little girl while she was peeing. He looks like the type of guy who would be torturing cats in his attic. I mean, he is a sick, twisted-looking individual just from his photograph that accompanies this story. And now he believes the president of the United States should rule by fiat, that is, as a divine right monarch, making all sorts of decisions to appeal or appease the left. And I'm telling you right now, they don't seem to care any longer. Of course they understand that the president is only a co-equal branch with Congress and the courts. That is, the president is not the boss of the courts. The president is not the boss of Congress. And I know a lot of people have been uneducated in our public schools, or they haven't been taught these things, so they really think that the president is in charge and everyone else is supposed to do what he says. And then when Congress doesn't do what he says, you say, oh, Congress is ineffective, and they don't like Mr. Obama because he's a black man. That's what you normally get out of them in these situations. No, he is a co-equal branch. But these lefties don't care any longer. The extreme left, the far left in this country, has decided that we need one of theirs to simply rule by fiat, a Joseph Stalin, if you will, a Chairman Mao, if you will, the People's Republic of Kampuchea, if you will. This is what they're looking at. This is what they desire. This is what they want. This is why it's dangerous that they are a growing threat in this country. They'd like to go into your government representation and just change it to look like, well, whatever they want, no matter what the electorate says. And now they'd like the president to rule by fiat and come take all of your guns. I guess he'll send Michelle out to do that. Well, you open the door, Mullen lobby or not, you see that, you'll turn tail and run, and then she can just ransack the house. The Wall Street Journal has this. Now think about this. They take away all of your guns. Let's say that's what the real goal is, to disarm America. And again, nearly 400 million firearms in private ownership. Good luck. But let's say they find a way to do that. Let's say they just stop the groceries from coming to your grocery store, and then when you're starving and your children are out of food and their bellies are bloated, they come back to you and they say, well, I've got this EBT card here. If you want groceries, I'll give you this card. You can run up whatever tab you want, but I need those firearms and I need all that ammunition. You could see that happening, right? Well, Wall Street Journal has this. Tom Coburn, former U.S. Senator who was from, Oklahoma? And brilliant guy. He's retired because he had some health issues. And Adam Andrzejewski, writing at the Wall Street Journal today, why does the IRS need guns? Think about this. There's an effort to take firearms away from you, but the government is stockpiling firearms. Special agents at the IRS equipped with AR-15 military-style rifles, there's a question mark after that. Health and Human Services Special Office of Inspector General agents being trained by the Army Special Forces, the Department of Veterans Affairs, arming 3,700 workers. The number of non-Defense Department federal officers authorized now to make arrests and carry firearms, 200,000, now exceeds the number of U.S. Marines, 182,000. In its escalating arms and ammo stockpiling, this federal arms race is unlike anything in history. Over the last 20 years, the number of these federal officers with arrest and firearm authority has nearly tripled to over 200,000 today from 74,500 in 1996. And then the writers ask, what exactly is Mr. Obama up to? So, we've got people in federal agencies. This is not the military. People in federal agencies who are armed up to the number of 200,000 or more with arrest powers, and then they would also like to take your firearms away. And then what? If you've got 200,000, and by the time this happens, there may be 500,000 armed federal agents. You would be a sitting duck. And then the next time you go to your Tea Party meeting and you find out you're being audited because, well, you're a Tea Partier and you'd like to object, they'll just come in and shoot you all up. 817, Bill Colley with you on Top Story on News Radio 1310, KLIX, and NewsRadio1310.com. And I know even a lot of Republicans out there are saying, here goes Colley exaggerating again. He's just whipping up a frenzy. He wants more people listening because that means more dollars flowing in and more dollars for him. But the possibility, my friends, is there when this happens. The possibility for abuse exists. I'm telling you right now that you've got people who are banking on the fact that most Americans would simply go along with this and allow government to continue to grow as this Goliath and think somehow that it's always going to be a benevolent Goliath. I don't think so. And that's my point. It opens the door, the possibilities that these are things that could happen. If you don't want tyranny, then don't set up the conditions for tyranny, because at some point someone will take advantage of those conditions. And that's what we have to avoid. We have a short break coming up. I'll be taking your telephone calls in just a few minutes. Bill Colley with you on KLIX this morning, and as well on our website, newsradio1310.com, where you can listen live. I would just like to remind you, my friend, Dr. Eric F. Jones, uses a holistic, systemic approach to wellness, and he's been doing this for 23 years with master's and doctorate degrees in marriage and family therapy. Dr. Eric F. Jones uses methods of alternative healing such as naturopathy, medicinal herbs, nutrition, sound waves, intellectual and cognitive self-regulation, and napathy to help remedy and manage mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual challenges. He's accepting new patients. He has appointments available Saturdays and weeknights. You can call him at 731-7178. That's 731-7178. And he's on Facebook. Now remember, that's Eric with a C and not a K. Eric F. Jones, Ph.D., mental health and wellness therapist. Give me a buzz on the other side of the break. The number is 736-0300. That's 736-0300. Newspaper called the Baltimore Sun reports today that the County of Baltimore, Maryland school system has decided it is going to give students 2 days off as Muslim holidays. They've denied this in the past, but I guess they feel if they do not do it, then they raise the specter of having jihad days at school, so better to appease these people and give them the time off. 824, Bill Colley with you on Top Story on News Radio 1310, KLIX and NewsRadio1310.com. 53 right now. You can reach our program a couple of different ways. Email bill.colley@townsquaremedia.com or just give me a telephone call. 736-0300. That's 736-0300. You're up next. You're on the air.
Good morning, Bill. Bill, this morning on C-SPAN, people called in saying how great Obama's new Muslims were assimilating into our country. Nice story after nice story. But finally, one woman woke me up. She called in and said it was not great because they believe in Sharia law, and a Muslim she knows is happy because he just got permission to bring in his second wife. Any new Muslim that believes in Sharia law or any Muslim, they will not assimilate.
Well, and I thank you for the call. Think about this for a minute. If two men can get married, two women can get married, it's not going to be too much longer before we see polygamy legalized in this country, and then probably, somebody could marry his son or daughter, and then maybe horses, cows, and pigs. So I guess, if somebody from the Muslim world wants to make that argument, they'll be able to do it with the current court systems we have, and public mood is, well, yeah, whatever they like, go ahead and do it. Yeah. And I'm not harmed by that whatsoever. And probably to some degree you're not, But in the long run, traditional culture may well be harmed, and that could harm your children, grandchildren, and progeny for generations to come. You're up next? Nope. I guess you're not, so we'll try line 2. You're on the air with Bill Colley on KLIX.
Good morning. It seems to be impossible to believe that the FBI does not have access to social media in terrorism. And it was brought out yesterday that both San Bernardino and Orlando would have been prevented if the FBI had read the social media of these Islamic terrorist killers. And it's just incredible to me that their hands are tied by this administration's political correctness or wanting this country to be destroyed from within by bringing in all of these people that do not assimilate.
Here's a thought, too. The official press office of the Obama White House, known as the New York Times, has backed away from this story that the shooter in Orlando happened to be a homosexual. Remember, they were telling us his ex-wife said that, and that, and he beat her. Now we're discovering she's not being described as the ex-wife any longer, and she may have been involved with it, and they were texting back and forth as this was going on about how much they loved each other. So that narrative that the left tried to use for the first couple of days to whitewash all of this seems to have failed.
Well, it's just incredible to me what's been happening in this country, and it seems like the law enforcement people, the FBI and others, their hands are tied to be able to really do these things, so do what they're doing to protect us, and our elected officials seem to just look the other way. It's all about money, and so consequently, here we have the refugee situation here, and it's all over. I have a sister who lives down there, and it's getting critical down there. They're having major problems. They're bringing in over 500 a year, and they've got big population and lots of problems. Crime is just going crazy down there, and the schools are overloaded. This is another factor that people don't realize. Our schools are being flooded too, and then they're having to teach all these different languages, and I think 25 different languages in Amarillo alone.
Thank you. That increases the teachers union membership dues, though, and then they can turn around and funnel more of that to guess which political party. You're on the air on News Radio 1310, KLIX, and newsradio1310.com.
Yes, thank you. Interesting subject you got going this morning. The scenario about the government arming itself, it's interesting to look at it from the prospect or from the aspect that when you have a government that has taken more power than it was originally supposed to have, and then when somebody threatens to take that power away from them, then they act defensively, and that's exactly what's going on. As they're arming themselves, they're acting defensively to maintain their power, to keep their power that they've taken. And they have power that they don't deserve. They have power that they were not originally supposed to have. And when the people are starting to say, we want that back, all of a sudden they're starting to arm themselves and get into a defensive position. We've seen this happen repeatedly through history with governments, and it generally doesn't end very well.
And thank you for the call. I'll add to this, the Democrats in the House of Representatives, they're not having any support from Republicans, but they decided to have hearings yesterday about what they call, that is right-wing terrorism in America. And they focused, guess what, on the takeover of the Malheur Wildlife Refuge. Keep in mind, though, that the fellows who took over that refuge painted it and fixed the plumbing and the like, and they didn't shoot anyone. And meanwhile, this guy, Mateen, goes into a nightclub and he shoots over 100 people. That's no big deal. That's just apparently nightclub anger, and somebody spurned his advances, according to media. But on the other hand, a group of guys who harmed no one in Oregon, according to the Democrats, are the real threat. If we're going to have somebody ruling by fiat and outlawing those things that harm the country, let's get rid of the liberals first. I'll take more of your telephone calls in just a few minutes. It's 8:30-54 on News Radio 1310, KLIX, and newsradio1310.com.